Hello, and welcome to Not Here to Fix You, the podcast where we call out lies, share truths, and talk about everything from food, healing, feelings, and other stuff in between. I'm your co host, Amanda. I'm a food freedom and guilt recovery coach.
And I'm Lazina. I am your relationship repair coach, author, whatever you want to call me. I'm here to have conversations about how emotions affect our relationships, and that relationship also includes food. So we're not here to fix you, we're just here to talk with you. So let's dive in. And today, Amanda, I'm so happy to see you. I haven't seen you in a week, and it feels like a part of me is missing. And
Yeah,
normally
that's
this
true.
is our time to chit chat, but we're using this for, much better co-creation. But I do love our topic today. It's what lies we learned about food and feelings growing up. And that's one of my favorite topic because everything for me goes back to inner child anyways. And we've even done an episode with my and on my other podcast with my daughter about, make sure that you eat your food because children in Africa are starving, right? So how did you, I love asking the questions that's intrusive of how did you grow up and hearing about food? Was it good? Was it bad? What emotions were tucked away? And I eat my feelings. So I want to, I'm looking forward to the opportunity to unpack the rules, that we kind of observe the kids and how they play a factor in our lives, which is where, your expertise is. So let's go, girl.
Yeah, and I like how I remember on the first episode we touched on this. So we said we are gonna like pull it into this episode. But the episode you referenced, I was also on that episode, the podcast
Yes.
episode, and we were talking about children in Africa. But yeah, we're gonna talk about that again. Yeah, it is definitely something I think because we're both of Indian culture, so that let's talk about all the stuff we heard about food growing up that now looking back we're like, wow, that was such
Yeah.
BS. Yeah, let's let's get into it. Okay, so I'll let you start. What was the most outrageous thing you heard about food growing up? And how has that played a role in your, or played a role, yeah, in the past? Because now you're much better with food,
Yeah.
right? You
Yes.
worked on it. I
Especially
think
this
you're in
week.
a pretty good place. As your coach, I can say that.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad that you can I can feel proud of it too because also this week I felt like I was really on point with my eating habits and I incorporate a lot of different colors in my food and it was a lot veggie based and I felt really proud of it. I did not let go of the carbs or anything, so I'm happy with it. But I think for me, the most outrageous thing that I heard was that if I don't finish everything on my plate, Satan was gonna eat from it. That's the one. I was like, oh my God, I don't want Satan to eat from my plate. So, like you have to finish everything. And now it's like, wow, I don't even now, if I'm somewhere and I feel like I can't finish my food, I have such guilt throwing it out. Because there's also the, children in Africa are starving. You need to be grateful. I think
Yeah.
those are the two famous ones.
Okay, that's funny. So, I mean, yeah, I think we talked about this, and I heard the same one growing up. I mean, for me, uh, there were, I would say, other kind of lies that I was told along the way, but that one stuck with me. Like,
Mm.
Amanda, you have to finish your food because there are starving children. And I think Africa is, like, no shade to Africa, but it is generally a poor country than, India. So I think, and I have this vision in my head that that famous song was also, was it Band Aid? Yeah, I think it was Band Aid, right? Uh, which plays during Christmas time. Feed the world and let them know it's Christmas time. And there were always pictures of African kids in the background of that song. And it was so strange because that song was like feed the world, but all I saw were African kids.
Yes.
And it with me. I think my parents might have seen that video too. That's how they were like, oh, let's just use Africa. And that was put on me at a very young age. They were like, there are starving children in Africa, Amanda. You have to finish your food. You gotta eat your plate because suddenly I was responsible for starving. I'm not sure how
Every
that like. Yeah, and now when I think of it, I'm like the logic is so whack. Shouldn't I be sharing that with
yes.
kids in, but now I'm like, I'm not sure that was a good thing to put on a kid. I mean, I'm not blaming my parents. They didn't know any better. They probably heard that story from India.
I'm guilty of being a parent that said that too. Like, I mean, I just learned, I'm like, what, but now I want to talk to somebody from Africa because I want to know, like, were they just used as like, Africa is a rich, fertile, country, I mean, continent, what that has, it's magnificent in culture and food and everything. So it's like, why are we fo there's developing countries all over the world, but no, Africa. Okay, but that might be a whole different topic in its own.
But that was a good way, like you said, Bea, right? Because you said the word guilt, and
Yeah,
back then as a kid, I didn't really think about it. But now when I'm thinking, I was like, yeah, that was a really good thing to say, right? The guilt, especially for me, because I always had that image of the kids from that song in my head, and I was like, oh my God, they're so like they look like they're starving. They did look like they were starving in that
yeah,
song. So I was like, oh my God, they're starving. I can't do that. Like I need to eat. But then that played a bad role for me growing up because even if I was hungry, even if I was full, I would still finish what was on my plate. Like I would stuff myself. And that was not good. I think that was one of the entry points to not having a good relationship with food, for me at least. But yeah, it was all crazy. And it's so funny that when you told me that you had the same lie, I'm like, I think this is a universal lie.
yeah.
Everyone's
Yeah, I mean the um I really want to have more perspective on what again, it was just always told. Like it was just something that we did unconsciously. And one of mine is the carbs, right? My belief was that if I eat carbs, it's gonna go straight to my hips, my face, my thighs, my arms, and that really. But those thoughts came from my negative body image of myself. So and that's what I love about what you do and your focus because it's not just about food and eating healthy. It's looking at the entire mindset of what we've been trained or what we learned. And I don't like to say trained because then nobody was sitting there training us. They just did what
like,
my compassion is like kicking in there. I don't want to blame anybody for my belief. Like, I chose to believe that. That there's so much whether it's body image. If I grew up like a little chunky, so I felt like I was always criticized for being chunky. And so every time I sat with a plate of food and I would eat, and then I would feel guilty afterwards, and then I would have that whole cycle of shame. And that's when I learned how I was using food as on the victim triangle. I was becoming the victim of it. I was blaming food, and then I was using food as to comfort me as well. So, and that was really tied to my body image completely. The other parts of food was tied to loneliness. It was like, that's how I was. And I think that's a whole other conversation
yeah,
too. I don't want to get too caught up in ahead of what we're discussing right now. But like share some of your I really like how you and I have communicated about those beliefs. So, I'm interested in, spreading that out around to everybody
yeah.
else.
And the carb one also came up for me. Like I remember when you came on the call, you did tell me you're like, I'm scared of carbs and I love to eat potatoes. I just don't want to look like one. And I don't know how my face was on that call, but I did flashback to my childhood in my head because I remember growing up hearing those stories like, oh, don't eat too many potatoes, or you're gonna look like one. Don't eat too many cookies, you're gonna look like one. And let me just say for everyone out there, I eat everything. I mean, not humans, but everything else is game.
I hope you don't.
Everything else is fair game for me. And I have not sadly looked like an ice cream, a cookie, or a potato. I mean, yeah, I was a chunky kid too growing up, but I think that also does tie back, like you said, to the relationship we had with food because like for me, because I was given these messages about like carbs in general, whether it's rice or whether it's, you know, potatoes or whatever, pizza, bread in, especially, I would obviously put that on a, like it was like a reward, right? I could put this on a pedestal because, oh my God, like it's such a special thing. And like I remember there was a time when I don't remember which adult, but they were like, oh, don't eat too much of rice, you know, because it's a carb-based thing. And I had a little bit of a, I mean, I don't know what people call it, but like I call it a punch, like a little bit of a pot bed when I was a kid. And that used to come from rice. And I remember, you know, especially in the first few years, I was kind of fussy with what I ate. But I would always have this staple, like I want to have my rice and dal. But then since I was eating it every day, I think my like I was given the impression, like now that I think of it, that I was developing a stomach because of it. And because I'm a woman, you know, you can't look that like that. You've got to look a certain way. So, like you said, it goes back to body image. And then I was like, oh, I like rice, but then I shouldn't eat too much because I'm gonna look this way. And that was something that I had like a love-hate relationship then with, you know, rice. Because on one hand, I did love it, but on the other hand, I'm like, oh, you know, after I eat it and I go, I look at myself in the mirror, I don't feel too good about this. So, and it's funny because, you know, when you're a kid, I don't think, I mean, I don't know about everybody, but I never thought of body image. Like I was just like, this is food I'm gonna eat. Like I never looked in the mirror and thought or found flaws with like, oh, this is how my stomach looks, or this is how, you know, my arms are, or whatever. Like it's because you pick up these messages from people around you, and then society tells you like, oh, you know, a girl should look a certain way, a girl should eat less than a guy. I heard that. I mean, I have a brother, so growing up, I kind of heard that a bit. Like, you know, boys eat more than girls. Not that I want to say I was pressured into eating less, but when you put that message out, you're obviously doing the comparison between your plate and, you know, someone else around you. So I think it does tie back, like what you said, it's very important, especially it's not just food. You realize like there's a whole way I have to look that society dictates. And then we're trying to fit into this mold of what people around me deem acceptable. So yeah, I think we start looking for validation from them, but that's like a whole
Yeah.
different topic. Yeah.
And then, and also like, then now, and I don't see it much now, but I don't know if it's even in my um awareness. When people would, take pictures of their food and post it on Instagram. And for a while, that was even another kind of society change standard. But when we also think about it, like I can only speak for my culture, and I would love to hear about other people's culture, but that's another thing that to me, played into food because if you are growing up in Guyana, it's a lot of hard work, farm work. So the idea, and then growing up Muslim, we fast every Ramadan. So it's like, it was anticipated that we were going to eat a heavy meal in the morning. We're going to eat a lot of ground food, root vegetables, like because that's very filling, and then also the rice and anything that's carby because you need to have good food. And then that's why men eat more than women because their work is harder type of thing. So I think like now in 2025, my perspective of that is so different than it was when I was, maybe 6 years old in Guyana, where the men were going out and working and the women were at home. But then with my grandmother's time, she was out in the fields too. So the way that they started to eat was for survival, not even for and it is for nutrition, but it was more for survival. So to think about what do we need for survival now, to have those same mentality when it comes to food, and then the judgment with it, it can be it could be a big contrast, and I think that's where a lot of the guilt comes in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's definitely true. And it's also like we talked about earlier, like you realize, like potatoes is not so good for you because that's what you heard growing up. I heard about rice and potatoes. So I think we're already programmed. Yeah, I'm gonna say the word program because it's already told to us at a young age, like, oh, this is like good and this is not good. So and it's kind of funny, right? Because I think we're kind of told as a society that we need to eat less of the bad foods. And what are the bad foods? I mean, now when you look at it from my perspective, none of the foods are bad. It's just what are your eating behaviors? That's what I look at. I no longer think of unhealthy food. I think of
Yeah.
unhealthy eating behavior, like unhealthy eating. When people say that to me, I'm like, what do you mean by that? And then they'll pick up like, oh, I have chips or I eat too much pizza or too much ice cream. And I'm like, define too much, like people just say this because we're told that growing up. And I mean, again, not to blame parents, but then like, let's take a regular example, like going to the dentist, when, or your first experience at the doctor, right? You were scared out of your mind, but then what do you told? Like, after this bad experience, let's go for ice cream or,
Okay.
whatever your food of choice is.
Yeah.
And again, a whole different topic, but I'm just saying that's where you start picking up like, oh, wow, ice cream's a treat. And like, I can only have this when I accomplish something or,
Right. Yeah.
so
The
you're
reward.
like, yeah, this
If
is
you
my reward.
if you
This
eat
food
all
is
the vegetables on your plate, then you can have the yeah.
yes, yes, exactly. I heard that. I mean, yeah, sure, you don't want to eat sweet through the day because you gotta worry about your dental health as well. But uh, making it like, oh, you only get to eat, a chocolate or an ice cream if you finish your plate of, vegetables or whatever it is. Yeah, that's like an ultimatum. Like you do this, then you get that. So then we're like carrot and like this is the carrot you get at the end, so let's like let's do it. So what are we teaching? Like what did we really learn? We learned that no matter if I don't like what's on my plate, I still gotta eat it because it's supposedly good even if it
Yeah.
tastes horrible, because technically in my kiddie brain I'm like, I want that good stuff, which is the ice cream at the end. Right, that's what I want, so I'm just
Yeah.
gonna finish this so I can get that. So we're not having a good relationship with it either way. Yeah, it is important to see like the messages we get. I think that's definitely important. Now when I look back at it, that's what I realized.
Yeah. I when we were talking earlier, and you said when I mentioned about the food, and you're like you remember the little version of you, and I'm such an inner child advocate that um when I think back about what I've learned about food and what I have instilled in my children about food, I'm like, man, the I don't necessarily have judgment on it because I can't blame myself and I can't blame other people. It already happened. But food it's been such a culturally, I think there's so many beautiful cultures that incorporate food in their celebrations. I love Hispanic food as well, but probably because I grew up in South America, so it's similar. But when I look at how African foods, like I've had like from the restaurants, but not real authentic African food what they're eating, even Asian food. So when I think about the restaurants here, right, they're selling what the best food that they think of their country is, but they're not really selling what they eat every day because I'm sure a lot of people are eating like cabbage. I've seen like some Asian meals where it's not even rice based, it's really like
Mm.
um, greens and it's more, I want to say cabbage. That's the only thing I can think of right now, my lack of knowledge here. But so it's like when we go to a restaurant, there's all of these food on there, but these are all the best of the best, what they think is the greatest. But when we're really sitting down every day, we have different experiences. We're just not gonna get that in a restaurant or that
Yeah.
experience in a restaurant, I think. Even whenever I'm cooking, let's say my work has a potluck and I'm cooking, it's going to be, well, what's the best Guyanese dish I can make? It's not gonna be well balanced. It's gonna be like the tastiest, carbiest one. It's gonna have carbs and it's gonna have protein. That's all you're gonna get. You're not gonna get the salad on the side or like, when you go to the buffet line, there's going to be some pumpkin or there's going to be some spinach. That's not all going to be there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. If you do potluck, like I'm assuming like when I think of potluck, I think of like, a gathering and a party. So obviously you're like, I need to bring the best dish. And like, we're both Indians, we're already programmed to like you gotta get the best thing there. Like you're not gonna bring dal and rice, you're gonna probably be ostracized if you do. But you gotta bring like your A game.
I want to bring
But it
that up, though.
yeah, but it's interesting, right? Because at these events, everyone's like, I'm not gonna say they're showing off food, but they do want to bring the best of what they make. So obviously that time you're not thinking about it. You're just like, wow. I can't speak for everyone, but if I was there, I was like, wow, this food is amazing. Like I want to try everything, and I'm not thinking, wow, it needs to be balanced and it needs to be this because for me, I'm there to eat, but I'm also there to mingle with people. So it's not like I go there with my plate ready and like I'm just like stuffing my face like I do. But there's always that childhood, like that child excitement in me, the inner kid, right? The inner
Yeah.
child that comes out because I love food. Like I'm a foodie. I know you're a foodie. So
Mhm.
it's like food is important to me, but like sharing food with people I also love is like a much more, I would say, joyous experience. So yeah, I'm not like now when I go, I'm not like focusing. I remember there was a time when I would go and I couldn't really be present with the people because in my head I'm thinking, ooh, that's got too many calories. Like I don't think I should eat that or like and it just diminishes the experience. But yeah, I think in a way it's good we have these events because it takes us out of the focusing on the food part only and also being present with people that we love. And I love that you brought up the buffet night because I mean now I do not like buffets, but I remember because again, it's an Indian thing. We go for buffets, best value for money. But growing up, I would go to buffets and only now I realize I hate them. Like I don't like them because they're so I like to see a lot of food, but this is so much of food, right? And obviously, like you said, there's gonna be lots of salad there, lots of healthy. I'm gonna say healthy in quotes, right? Because that's what people understand.
Yeah.
A lot of healthy stuff. But hey, we're at a buffet and we're paying for that. You better bet your dollar that I'm gonna be filling my plate with the better stuff. Like bring out the chicken drumsticks, bring out the chops, whatever.
Mhm.
Bring out the dessert. I'm not even looking at the vegetable counter.
Exactly. Bye.
So it's not that the buffet as such is bad. It's just that look again, it's like our eating behavior. What
Yeah.
choices are we making at the buffet? That's what I realized with myself. I was like, I go to these things and I'm just picking up like, I'm
Mhm.
not eating bad. I'm not eating healthy. It's a completely different experience. I'm
Yeah.
just picking up what I want. I'm not even thinking. And there's also that thing in your mind, right? Because it's like eat all you want. You can't pack it and take it. So you're like, oh, this is so good. I'm never gonna get this again. I'm just gonna keep putting it down
Yeah.
till you stop.
Yeah.
So yeah, buffet.
Yeah.
While buffets keeps healthy stuff, we don't make healthy or we don't make good choices at buffets. Let's put it that
No.
way.
I feel like just going to the buffet period is more like a reward experience. It's like when you after the dentist, let's go get a reward. That's reward food. I'm not looking into any of that. Mm-mm. And you're
Indeed.
right. You're right about the inner child thing. Like I now love incorporating f eating from my inner child because it's more it's a better experience. It's not so much pressure and it doesn't come with the judgment. It
Yeah.
comes with the love for food.
Yeah. And like I like that experience is good. It's good you brought that up because when you have a good relationship with food, like what I've noticed is now that I have a good relationship with food, when I eat something and if it's something that, I have a childhood memory around, like I'm literally thinking of how I felt, present with food then and how excited I was, and then my experience now as an adult. And then I'm like connecting the two. And if there was like any, negative thinking about food back then around this, like any guilt that was brought up, like now I kind of talk myself out of it. I'm like, it was a good experience. I don't feel those negative emotions anymore. Like
Yeah.
tomorrow, someone came and like, oh, you ate too much rice. You gotta. Well, I actually don't have that anymore, but I wouldn't care. I mean, like it was a good dish. I'm gonna eat it. Like I'm not gonna feel guilt over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the message that I kind of really want to bring home is there are no good and bad and healthy and unhealthy. It just all falls back into behavior, which is what I've seen when we work together and when I work with other women. This is what I see. It's the behavior that you have around food. It's not food. We have that, like you said, victim mindset because we learn it young. So we're like, oh, we either blame ourselves or we blame food. It
Yeah.
depends which category you call it. But we're always playing a blame game either way.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think it's the negative messages we hear about it growing up, and it's so beautiful when you fix all that because oh
Yeah.
my God, it's so nice to sit down now and eat my food without those voices in my head going.
Yeah.
It's just a much more relaxing experience.
Yeah. And on that note, as we wrap up, right? It isn't about fixing anything, right? It's really about understanding that we can actually release the the things that we learned about food and eat from a place where we aren't carrying over the guilt and that makes us have much healthier choices overall. And I feel like I'm repeating myself at this point, but I like that it's not to fix anything that was broken. It's just more to unpack it and learn to love it in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up our
Yeah.
episode. And we're so happy to have you here today. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And if anything resonated, do drop us a comment or share with someone who you think is also going to enjoy this episode. And we're going to leave our descriptions and where you can find us in the show notes. And we'll see you on the next episode of Not Here to Fix You.
Yes.
Bye.